Hey guys, welcome back. We are super excited today to get Ida Steensgaard onto the podcast. We just watched, well, I'm sure everyone did, the race at Stuttgart, and we followed the close race you had with Kate Davey at Hyrox Stuttgart. So we are really interested to find out how that went. But for some background for anyone that doesn't know you, you're an OCR world and world and European champion, and you're a Red Bull athlete. And well, I mean, just looking through your Instagram page, it's just absolutely mega. So I'm going to throw it straight over to you and say thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's amazing to be on here on your podcast. I love it. Yeah.
And no, we're very excited to find out more about you and your journey and Hyrox. But I guess we probably have to start by asking, how are you feeling after Hyrox Stuttgart? Is the body recovered? Is it okay? You had an amazing race.
I would say I was at my sport masseuse Monday, and he was like, I don't think your legs have ever felt like this smashed. So he was almost a bit worried for me. Yeah. So I was feeling quite tired. And I mean, I've done a lot of racing through my career, so, but I think, yeah, just the intensity of a Hyrox race, and also because it's a little different from the races I usually do. And I really tried to push towards the end, to try to catch Kate Davey. So, yeah. Feeling a little tired, but it's getting better today. I'm going to try to do my first quality run today. So we'll see how that goes after the podcast. Yeah.
Ease you in gently. Have a nice chat, and then you can go and smash your hard session
exactly.
out.
Yeah. Exactly.
So taking it back then a little bit, how did you first get into everything you do? You've been doing OCRs, and then you done Hyrox, you're a Red Bull athlete. Like, how did this all start from childhood to being an athlete?
Yeah, so I kind of had a quite like normal, regular childhood. I wasn't an athlete from being young. I just, always, my mom and dad has always been like, you have to do some kind of sport when I grew up. So I did all kinds of different sports. I think one of the sports I did for the longest growing up was handball. That's like the national mark, but it's more a team sport. And then, when I got a little older, I went to uni, and I still I had a normal high school, with partying and drinking. I wasn't an athlete at all. And then I started training quite like a little more seriously at this training center in Copenhagen during uni, because I was just tired of drinking too much beer and like not focusing on my physical health. And yes, and then I trained there a lot for some years, and then we did these obstacle races, OCR races, which started to be for fun the first couple of years. And then I'm very competitive about almost everything I do. So I was a little competitive in this training center, and I was competitive about, some of the other members and trainers. And yeah, then I started being quite good at OCR. I think this was back in 2013. And then, I just got more and more into OCR obstacle course racing, which is, the fundament of that is running and then doing these different obstacles that you meet. So it can be strength demanding obstacles, technical obstacles, like very agile movements, which is really fun and, outside. And then, fast forward, then I ended up doing it like these 8-10 years almost, and doing it professionally. I don't really know when it happened, but it was kind of like a transition from it being a hobby to being like a very ambitious hobby to it being like what I did most of my time. But I've always been doing a little bit of work on the side, having a hard time to commit to like 100% full-time athlete, even though I maybe should have done it. So so right now work 2 days a week, and then the rest is like on training and stuff. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of like the journey into OCR. It started being very serious for me about 2018. That was when I was signed with Red Bull, which of course was like really big for me. And I remember my intro video saying like, I want to become the world champion. And in one way I said it, and the other way I was like, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. It sounds like freaking crazy,
You gotta put it out there though sometimes, don't you?
Exactly. And I was still like, I'm going to say it, I'm going to commit to it. But then, it really kind of roots in you. And I, of course, every year I try to give myself a better and better set up of like, developing myself as an athlete and do more racing or, do better within like getting different, coaching or figuring out how I can become better at stuff. And then that ended out in getting the World Championships in 2022.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
And how did it feel when you did it? Like from saying it to actually achieving what you said you were going to do?
I mean, it was still really crazy, I still couldn't believe it. I think it was just, and it was so hard, especially the years under COVID, with a lot of training and the motivation because I was in a quite good path before COVID and just, having to stay, in shape. And then I got injured during COVID and I had like a big recovery process. But I also think that maybe made me stronger somehow, getting over that quite serious injury. And then just, building from there and then, finally getting that World Championships. I don't know. It still seems unreal sometimes, but of course, then I had to go back and do it again so I could show it wasn't just a one-time thing. Classic stupid athlete brain, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely a different feeling. Like from the first time, it was like so ecstatic joy, like you couldn't believe it. And the second time, it was a little more the feeling of really still happy, but also being a bit relieved that, it wasn't just like a one-time thing, kind of to root that like, okay, it's like it was meant to happen and I'm here, to show I'm the best. And all the hard work has paid off. So
did you feel a lot of pressure once you became world champion when you were like training the next time to go back? It must have been a really different feeling.
Yes, 100%. I have dealt with a lot of pressure, of course, in my life because I've been very competitive in OCR for many years, and it definitely feels different as when you kind of reach like being in the top elite field, because I think maybe it's a little bit different with Hyrox, but with OCR, the courses, they differ quite a lot, which means it can be very hard to compare yourself based on the time or like, a specific station time. So you compare yourself a lot against the different athletes because it's kind of like the only measurement of comparison you have. So it becomes very much like, how many percentage have I away from this person or not, or like placement wise. So a lot of people do want to beat you and they kind of see you as their kind of, measurement of their own, progress, which of course is, an inspiration. People do it, but sometimes it can also be hard,
hard on your back.
Exactly. Yeah. That people want, to beat, of course. So, but I also like it some way. I think that's maybe just from the competitive nature. So in one side, it's a lot of pressure, but it's also, I also like to be in that position because, it also means people, see you as, they're kind of, the person they want to hunt or like be like. So I think that's also, a good place to be at. But of course, it can be mentally hard, but yeah, you just have to zone in and out, I think, of like how much you think about it. So
yeah, absolutely. And then you did your first Hyrox end of 22. Is that right?
It's true. Yes, I did my first Hyrox in end of 22. It was in Hamburg. I did not train for it at all. It's like that's in general been my relationship with Hyrox, has been me being a little arrogant, being like, oh, I can do this. This looks fine. I mean, it's something with running and doing stuff.
Yeah, it's running an obstacle.
It's a bit like OCR, and then I come and I just get like slapped in my so I was like, shit, this is not at all as OCR, So, and of course, also because I'm quite good friends with Chris Rogowski that won the World Championships in, was it 21? I think.
Yeah, I think it was back a while, wasn't it?
Exactly. And she's also, in obstacle racing. And, of course, I also look up to her and she's like a great friend of mine. So I also thought like, okay, Chris, and, she can shift in and out of this. Maybe I can do the same. And And I think that's what has been hard for like my relationship with Hyrox when I started there in N22, because, you know, I had an expectation maybe I will do well, which I mean I still did, but it was really hard to align with OCR, because in OCR I'm kind of like the more slow runner. I have to be like faster and more agile and maybe, you know, a little bit lighter and very, you know, explosive, where in Hyrox I'm quite fast on the running, but I just need to be stronger. So it's kind of two little different training requirements. So I kind of thought during my off season, when I had more strength, maybe I could train for Hyrox, but then it was also doing a lot of racing during my off season, which maybe wasn't that smart. I did the European Championships in 2023 in Maastricht.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I qualified after that Hamburg race, and it was absolutely one of the most horrible race experiences I've had in my entire life. I remember like Lauren Weeks, because, you know, you're like on this grid. They were setting up the news station for her because she was like 1 whole kilometer in front of me while I was still on my rower, right? And
God, I can't imagine.
Painful, yes, because it was very slow and I came in dead last, you know.
But you say very slow, it's still fast, just like because you're only against the top like 15 girls. It's still...
Exactly, of course it is, but you know, mentally, you know, especially OCR, when I'm used to almost being like top 3 and I was sitting there like alone on my rower and there was nobody there, like crying, and it was very very hard. And I think after that, I think that was January 2023, I was just like, okay, pause from Hyrox, like it's like need a break. And then it took me almost like a year before I then went back and did a little bit of racing again. And
it's like OCR is very like, I mean, I haven't raced it at all, but like followed it a bit, but a lot of it is like body weight, because you're hanging a lot, you're jumping like, and there's nothing like that in Hyrox, is there? Like, I mean, if they chucked in a load of pull-ups or something, I'm sure you'd be like absolutely smashing it. But
it's also a lot of pulling, you know, in OCR, where I feel like in Hyrox it's even more like thing. You have to push on the burpees, you have to push on the sleds, and like there's more. It's also some just like different strength requirements, and also like you need more mass to be fast on the ergs and stuff, right? So I don't need to be as light as I am in, you know, OCR, because I'm carrying my own body weight through everything all the time, right? So it's definitely different, which I then also figured out after some time. And that's also why I made the kind of transition these 3 months ago, that like now if I want to give Hyrox a chance, I want to do it properly. So I just went kind of all in on training for that, which helped. So
so it paid off, because obviously you had an incredible race, you ran an incredible time. I think, was it 102 something? Like unbelievable. So what changed in the 3 months prior? You were really focusing on trying to build up the strength for like the pushes and the burpees and the ergs and things. That was the main difference.
Yeah, I think the main difference was going from maybe having one like body weight, upper body training, and maybe like 1 full body training, to having almost like 3-4 strength trainings a week, and making them much more heavy, especially on the lower body, but also on my upper body, having like a mix of having some like very heavy upper body, but also like strength endurance, to just have like some more volume. And I did like a 3 months strength block. So that's kind of what I did. And then it just like kept my running and, you know, the other things, but it was what I really focused on was just building more strength over these, 2 to 3 months. It's actually not even that long. And the thing is also, I had a little bit of problems with my shoulder from OCR in general, which has meant that it's kind of been a mix of a rehab and strength block. So it has still, of course, been quite specific for Hyrox, but I think it's also just been like building basic strength up again that has really, you know, helped me a lot. And my body responds genetically well on strength training. So as soon as I add it in, and I've had to, you know, be a little careful with OCR training because, you know, I do build strength quite fast and sometimes I don't need it as much. So, so maybe I'm more genetically built for Hyrox. I don't know. I'll figure out. But it's definitely been like I've had to try to be lighter for OCR, which is, yeah, definitely different feeling now, which is nice, you know, can eat more food and lift more heavy weights and those kind of things. So that is quite nice.
And what about leg strength? Because obviously you're strong upper body. Like in OCR, I know you do a lot of running. How about leg strength? Does that come into it? And has that been a transition, or have you started to do a lot more leg strengthening stuff for Hyrox?
Yes, I've definitely done a lot more like back chain strength training than I usually.
Chain, yeah.
And yes, exactly. So like much more of just like you know, training quite heavy sleds, of course, but also doing things of like heavy step ups, heavy deadlifts, heavy these, I don't know what they call front squats, where you kind of sit on a
like box squats
or something.
Yeah.
And just like really focusing on like my back chain, because I do have quite strong quads, but like my whole like glutes and hamstrings and things. I was also very fortunate because with Red Bull, you can get to go to this athlete center. So I also went there and we kind of tested both like strength in like the very like high load, so kind of like not that heavy, but you know, many reps, and then like very explosive high power. So I kind of figured out that I needed to build more, you know, back chain strength compared to my my quads and stuff. So we also, some of the training I've been doing has also been very specifically like what I maybe needed to be more symmetrically strong, because you know,
to get symmetric, like through instead of being like anterior heavy on front with the
exactly because they could see, you know, I'm really good when it was like lower load because I'm used to like running uphill and doing these things, but when it gets really heavy, that's where I was definitely lacking some strength. So then we can kind of figure out how to put in some of the more like heavy back chain movements, which has been good for that. So yeah, so of course it also helps that you get in like very clear guidelines. That's definitely very.
Have you enjoyed the build up? Have you enjoyed like, I guess, the focus on Hyrox and the run up and then the race?
I mean, 100%. Like one thing I have feel that's very nice about Hyrox, which is different from OCR. But I mean, it, you know, everything has its pros and cons. But what I've loved about OCR for many years is that, you know, it's never the same course 100%. So there's almost like a new challenge or a new obstacle, and you have to like very, you know, readjust to something like that. But what I've also felt, also getting not older as an athlete, but a little bit, is like sometimes having to train for something that's so different sometimes in OCR, because then you can have a 3-kilometer course, then you can have a 10-kilometer course with a lot of elevation, then you can have a very heavy course or like a very fast course, and all this is very different requirements. Where, I mean, for OCR is a bit more like, I know what the requirements are, and it's a bit more simple and nice that I know like this is exactly what I need to train for, not only for this one event, but like for kind of a long time. So it's easier for me to do the correct training, where sometimes I kind of peak in like weird ways for very specific race requirements that this one race has, which is hard for the body in another way, because you kind of like change up a lot of the things you're doing quite often, where I really like that it's just a bit more standardized and simple, and I know that I just have to run around this nice flat, not like some crazy elevation or some like crazy downhill or sand or like rugged terrain or whatever. It's just like nice flat fast running. So it's just and I love being on the track sometimes, which, you know, when you do more obstacle racing, is not that smart because you need the technical running. But sometimes it's just not my favorite thing to do, especially because I live in Denmark, so we have very boring technical running around. It's just flat country, so it's nice I can just run fat and fast. Flat and fast.
Flat and fast. That's your tagline now.
I don't know. Trying to express that. My God. Yeah.
It is quite nice though, isn't it? I think that's one of the like the positives that and the advantages that a lot of people like about Hyrox, like even coming from a CrossFit background or like you said, an OCR background, because all these like competitions, no one knows what they're turning up to, or they're turning up to something different every single time, whereas Hyrox has standardized it. So for example, like you as an athlete and an elite athlete, if you want to get some measurements, you can be like, right, this is what I got last time, I don't know, this was my weakest station, this is what I need to work on. And
exactly, yeah,
you can start to work on exactly what you need to work on for you.
Yeah, which is so different from what I've been doing the last 8 years. So it's just, yeah, it's really nice for my mind, I think, that it's like, I know that I'm preparing for a specific thing and not for, things that change up last minute. So.
And then what about the mental side of things? Like obviously being an athlete in OCR and being able to win the world championships, you can hold your nerve and obviously have belief that like you can do it. Do you have any like tips for anyone listening with like race strategy, or how to kind of calm their mind or help keep the nerves at bay? Because I feel like that's something people ask quite a lot about. You know, you can do all the training and all the work, but then when you get on that start line, some people, it kind of all goes out the window a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think it is getting even more and more important, and especially in a race as Hyrox, because like you have to know you're going to suffer, you know. It's kind of like mentally before you even start, like it's not gonna feel great, you know. You kind of have to accept that like there's going to be pain and moment of pain, and there's also going to be moments where you would want to quit, or like where you're feeling like this station took a lot out of me, how can I even, you know, recover on the run and these things. And of course, like the first thing is kind of putting a race strategy. I think it's always a good idea. Do you want to push hard on the first part of the race, on the last part of the race? Is there maybe some stations you really love, so those are the ones you want to like go really hard on? Or is it maybe more the run where you want to push? Because I think it's important, you of course you have to listen to your body, but it's nice to have like some sections of the race where you know like there is going to be like, for example, I was thinking in the Stuttgart race that like maybe the second half was a little better for me. So I was kind of hoping, you know, that part was maybe where I could push a little more, like after the burpees, for example. So that was like, you know, a strategy I kind of made for that race. And then I think mentally, when you're in it, some tips that I will give is I kind of have like 3 different things that I vary between. One of them is like very minimalistic thinking. I've also done this from like OCR, because if you think about the whole entire race, when you're like at the second station, it can stress you out. So really just focusing on what you're doing in the specific moment. If it's kind of just like thinking about, okay, this is where I'm placing my hands on the sleds and I'm just going to walk like 10 steps. And that's like the only thing you're thinking about. You're not thinking about, oh shit, after the sled, I have to run and my legs are going to feel like shit and blah, blah, blah. So just, you know, being very simple in like, okay, right now I'm just like running. I'm just thinking about my breathing, to just really being like doing simple talk to yourself in the moment and not thinking too much ahead is one strategy, you know, that I like to use to just, you know, and then another thing I like to do is kind of like having these, you know, small motivational things I tell myself. So it can be something that's very, you know, specific for me that I like. It's like, I always have this one, like, it's never over until you cross the finish line. I think that's kind of like one thing, because a lot of things can happen during the race. And like for me to stay in it, or like, I know it's going to hurt, but you know, it's going to stop soon or something like that. So like having these small mental things that you can tell yourself during the race, which I also like. And then, I mean, the last thing is also just surrendering a little bit to that it actually hurts sometimes. You know, I have some stations like the burpees, I just know it's going to hurt, but it's okay. Kind of just surrendering to getting, even like, I know it sounds weird, but even like exploring the pain a little bit, to be like, okay, like, how is this even feeling? But I like to just focus on like being in it and be like, okay, it is very unpleasant, but I can be in it. You know, it's kind of, you know, also on the wall balls, sometimes I do the same. So I kind of shift between thinking about technique, motivating myself, and then just like exploring the pain of being in, you know, this situation, because it's like, okay, my shoulders are really hurting, but then I'm trying to focus on like, oh, how are they hurting? Or just maybe it's like some distraction while still being in the pain. I know it maybe sounds a little weird, but that sometimes just can get you to do like these, just like 1 or 2, 3 more before you release it down. So to shift.
I think distraction is like a good thing. Yeah, to make you think about just focus on something else. It can really change your mind, and like then you forget you've actually done a couple more because you've been thinking about something else, and
exactly, to really just like make that just go away. And then often some things will go wrong during a race, almost every time, and having just to like, okay, it's fine, it annoys me, but just like push it away quite fast to kind of stay in it. So in the Stuttgart race, I went to the sled push and I had like the very outer lane. And I think sometimes I get a little distracted because people are so close and they're, shouting, and which is good, So I kept on pushing like the sled not straight. So it kind of got stuck on the tape. So it got stuck, which meant that my strategy of like pushing half a lane went straight out the window, and it just got stuck like after maybe 1/3, 1/4. And then I had to like go all the way to the side, like pull it in again, and then kind of restart it. And right there, I got, very frustrated. But in that situation, to really be like, just like, it sucks, but it's fine. Like, just, leave it and kind of, move on with it. And it's hard in these situations, but I think it's very important to be like, it's still a long race. Like, we'll be fine. It's just like in the moment you can be like, because I had a really good skier and I had a really good run, and I was like, yes, I'm just like smashing this race. I'm leading. Let's go. I have like almost like 1 lane lead on the push before anybody comes. And then, I just get fucking stuck. Right. So it's like, God damn it, and you can be very mad, but it's just these things happen, and to try to just stay as calm as you can, even though it's hard, to feel like, okay, there are more other places to catch, and other things can also happen to your fellow racers you don't know. So you just have to stick with your own race and get the best out of it.
For sure. And then after, so at the back end then of that race, and when you finish, now you look back on it, do you think, okay, but I had a really bad time on the sled push, so you got your 102, but if you had had a good time, could you, do you start to think, oh, maybe I can get a PB now because I obviously had a bit of a rough time on it? You think you've got more in you because you...
I'm also a little like, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. Maybe that's why I'm a good athlete, maybe not, but I'm very like over optimistic on my own abilities sometimes.
Good. I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Like sometimes my coach is like, can you try it? It's like, I can do it, fine. And then when I do it, I'm like, shit, I cannot do that at all, So, but it's kind of funny that like my first thought is like, oh yeah, I can do that. And then afterwards like, oh shit, I probably can't do that. But maybe it's better to have that mindset instead of being like, shit, I can't do that at all, So I've always been like that. So in my mind, I feel like I have more to give in regards to the time. Both because one, I had this sled which kind of threw me a bit off, and it also meant that like my sled pull after in the run, I had so much lactic acid in my body because I had to do some quite long pushes. I was thinking, that I could push half, which then means, but instead I was pushing 1/3, 1/4, and then was pushing like the whole rest of the lane because I'm like, I'm not stopping more than one on each, right? So the acid was just, I was even feeling after that sled push, I was like, that was it, like, it's not going to be a good time today. That was some of the things in my mind, right? But then it's again like, okay, it's fine, you have this thought, just put it here, you like the sled pull, just go and just
see how that goes, and you might,
exactly,
and then that
right?
might turn it all around. I think you're right though. I think you saying about your mindset, and I think it does show like a kind of champion's mindset, is like they say you have to believe that you're going to win and you're halfway there. And I think it is like, I don't think anyone's really said that yet, like anyone that we've spoken to, but I do think that that's something that sets people apart. If you do believe you can do it, or you believe like, why not, you almost have to be proven wrong rather than prove yourself right. And
it's also, I've also had this weird like thought about Hyrox, because I've had this like inner feeling that like if I train properly for this, I could be very good at it. But I just haven't given myself the chance of like doing it. So I was actually very nervous at this race, because I was like, okay, now you've actually trained quite seriously for it in the last 3 months, where all the others have kind of just like YOLO'd a little bit going through it. So I was like, oh shit, like what if, how is it so sometimes that can also be, you know, a mental. That's also why I didn't want to post too much about going to the race, because I was also a bit afraid of like, what if I get, you know, sad that then it's just the same as all the other races, you know. But
yeah, added pressure.
But I think like it's important also to have this feeling inside. I think that was my point about it, was like I've had this feeling inside that like I can get really good at this, and and of course now it also showed in the time, but I still feel like I can get even better at this. Like this is like I still have a lot of potential. There's a lot of like non-specific training I haven't done yet. You know, I was almost 1 minute slower than Kate on the burpees, which is embarrassing, but
she's quite good at burpees though.
She is a burpee rocket. Yeah.
Insane. And it's funny because that's also part of my mental strategy, because I know she was coming and I know I wanted to like, you know, compete with her a little bit. I was like, she's going to be great for me to, you know, chase. And I knew at the burpees, I'm like, Kate is going to come now and she's going to overtake you and she's going to go out the station way before you, but it's fine because she's
okay.
So just like, don't change your race strategy, like, because you suck at the burpees right now. You're not good enough at them yet. So just, you know, keep your pace. But it's kind of funny because I could see her and the like coming la la la. I was like, it's fine, just, you know.
You're like, what shoes are you wearing? What's she doing? What's she taking? She's so spring, isn't she?
Yeah, thinking too much about the other people. So yeah, so that's important. But I guess yes, it is important that you, of course, believe yourself and you're like, yes, I can get good at this, or yes, I can get better. And sometimes it maybe can sound arrogant to people that it's like, oh, I can be so good at this and that. But I think for me, it's also like mentally, it's very important that I have that feeling inside. And that's also why I kind of want to go all in on Hyrox for this season and really just see, okay, well, it may take me, because that's also what is, you know, exciting for me as an athlete. And that's also what really, you know, motivates me to be an athlete and, you know, be training for all these years and having these different things. Is always like, what is my maximum potential within this thing? It doesn't really matter if it then means I'm going to be like one of the best, or if it's going to be enough to elite 15 or not. But it's just like, if I really train specifically for this, then where will it take me? That's like the most important thing for me to see. Where is my maximum level within Hyrox if I push, you know, myself as much as I can. And then whatever placement is given is another thing. But the most important thing is I feel like there's still more potential. I feel like there's still more things to work on, and that's where it's really exciting. And it's definitely, you know, a little bit, you know, for me, because now I've also been competing so many years in another sport, and now I'm kind of like,
yeah, it's good. It must be quite nice, like a fresh like look to come really across a new sport.
It's nice, it's a fresh start, but I also know with myself, because I do go quite all in when I do stuff. I also know that it's probably gonna be very hard, but I do have this very like new excitement about it, which I feel would definitely carry me through this and maybe even, you know, next season, depending on whatever happens, right? So it is nice that it's something different, where I could also feel with OCR the last couple of years, it's also hard when you just, you know, have been doing one thing for many, many years. So it's, I still really love it, but sometimes you also maybe just need something new.
Yeah, new challenge.
Yeah.
And so, go on, Em.
No, I was just going to say, and then you feel like when you've been racing something for like many years, and you're always trying to find the really marginal gains, I guess, every time, whereas like maybe it feels with Hyrox like there is actually, like you say, the burpees, like quite big improvements that you know that you can make. You're not necessarily really nitpicking at the moment, like I'm sure it'll get to that stage, but you probably feel like, oh, like if I just, you know, more than 3 months, if I did 6 months, a year of specific training, like think of the gains that you can make like going forward. It's exciting stuff.
it is exciting. And of course, I know I am, my starting point is, of course, very different from many others because I am kind of like an elite athlete in another sport, right? So I do have the running background. I do know, my strength training, all these things. So of course, I'm also starting at a good, starting point. But there's definitely a lot of things more specifically that I can do, which is just really exciting because it's, there's a lot of things I feel like I can still work on and optimize and focus on. And I do like the pressure of, racing. It's a little weird maybe sometimes, but it's, I know how it feels. So I don't feel that's the thing that's going to be as hard for maybe as somebody that hasn't had that,
Okay, jeg fandt det på nettet for
it's my CV.
I didn't understand a word of that.
Yeah, it's my CV that's spoken to my computer.
She wants to join in.
yeah. But the mental thing I think is like, it's of course different because race venues are a bit more intense in Hyrox than they are in OCR because you can kind of run away from the crowd because it's like a big loop. So I'm a little in doubt of like that feeling because it's indoor, it's a bit more intense, but I'm also good at just closing off and being, in race mode when I go. So yeah.
No, it's cool. And so moving forward for this season then, so are you going to race any OCR at all, or are you doing is Hyrox just, or have you not decided yet?
Oh, big question.
So, that is a good question. So I do have a Rebel project that is coming up this month, which is very exciting, which is OCR specific. So the rest of this month, I will be focusing on that. And then I will race Hyrox Hamburg, which is like 2nd November. I don't expect that to be, an improvement of my time because I won't have time this next month to like, it will be more maintaining than to actually improving because of the project, which is my first priority. But then after that, I am pretty sure it will be mainly Hyrox races. I'm hoping maybe I qualify for the Hong Kong majors. If I do that, I will.
Yeah, I was going to say, so have you got one, like if you matched your time, that would probably in Hamburg, that would probably be enough to have the 2 times to then qualify for the
I calculated I just have to run below 1:04:30 in Hamburg to be able to qualify. Also, but of course it depends on if there comes better times, within from now on to Hamburg. But Hamburg is kind of like the last race weekend, so I will know because the cutoff is right after, so I will know kind of what time is needed. And then usually I won't because in the Stuttgart race, I honestly had no idea about my time. I wasn't even thinking about the time at any point. The only thing I was thinking about was like, I want to catch Kate. This is fun, So
it's quite good to have that back and forth because it'll keep you going. You have a race within a race then, don't you?
So it was so nice because, I could see her on the farmer's walk. I was getting a little closer. I could see her on the, the lunges where I was really catching. And then I knew with the wall balls because we kind of had 50 more or less on the same time. And then, I maybe overdid it a little bit. So the last 50 of my wall balls sucked, but, it was still a lot about the race. So, and I think because I'm still not new in Hyrox, but still a little bit, I think this is probably my 5th race, I think, but also over a very long period of time.
Yeah, you haven't done it like back to back in one season, have you? You've like split them up over a couple of years, which is
exactly. So that's the thing. So I'm still not good at understanding. What am I running in regards to ending up getting a specific time? I know like that's really not in my mind right now. So I probably need to dial that in a little bit because. But it's also hard with the venues because they can change and there can be a lot of people on course, and the fast lane, slow lane isn't always
fast and slow lane,
especially not when they put up doubles right before and people are like getting annoyed because they like to run next to each other, and I always feel so bad, but I'm also like, this is very like I don't know how to solve that because it is literally a problem. Like I had some people almost like, like you can't get by, and I was like, it's not really helping,
So And it's a shame because it's like everybody's got the right to their own race and to run their
100%.
fastest time, but also at the same time, when you're out, you need to be aware of other people coming through. And yeah, it is a tough one.
Hard because I mean their race is just as important as mine, you know, in their thing. It's just very hard when like the time is so important for the getting it
100%.
that you get a little stressed in the way you kind of, you know, get a little
And then that's the formatting, isn't it? And almost the race over the weekend, like starting off a doubles before you're going to start off the pro women is probably not the best idea because you're going to have the top women trying to make the elite 15.
I was thinking having some of the like open men waves or something instead would probably be much better than having like double waves right before. But I mean, yes, somebody thinks about something.
Yeah, and it's a growing sport, isn't it? It's still, you know, they're trying and they're transitioning and they're trying to make things better and they're testing things, and it's still very early on in the sport. So I guess it'll get to a point where they work out the best format and it works for everyone.
Yeah, but that's very exciting. A good season ahead. Really good season ahead. I know you're we're going to try and wrap up soon, but do you think you have time to do a very quick fire round of our cheeky insights?
Yes, of course.
Okay, we'll try and keep it short and sweet. But the first question is, what shoes do you wear to race Hyrox?
In Stuttgart, I wore their Saucony Endorphin Pro Freeze.
Yeah,
it's apparently a lot of people are wearing.
Very popular.
Yeah,
apparently a good shoe. Yeah, I have also raced in the Essex Metaspeed Sky, which is a bit more like faster carbon shoe. But there's also something with stability that's a little hard sometimes. But those are the two shoes I have used.
Nice.
Yeah.
Next one is, which has been your favorite Hyrox venue to race in?
That's a good question. Probably the Copenhagen one, actually. But it also helps when you're on home turf and like there were so many people there I knew, and it was so much fun. I didn't even like have a good time because I did a race literally 2 days before, and I was flying home from Dubai the day before the race, right? Yeah, so it was a little stupid. Yeah, so we were very tired during this race, but the venue is really cool because it's kind of like there's high to the ceiling, and it's a little like all the other things going on is like split from the actual venue. So like the registration stuff is kind of way. So like the venue itself is quite nice. Yeah, I think Hamburg or Copenhagen.
Nice. Which is your favorite Hyrox station?
Oh, that's a good question. The thing is, I wanted up to this weekend to say that it was the sled pull that is my favorite, but now after this weekend it felt horrible. But I think I will still stick with the sled pull. Yeah,
you like the pull.
The ski erg is getting up there.
I like the ski erg. Yeah, I like the
ski erg is getting up there. I'm really starting to love the ski erg. Yeah, so one of those two. Yeah,
nice. Next one, if you could do a doubles Hyrox with anyone in the world, who would you choose?
Anyone.
It doesn't have to be a sporty person, it could be anyone.
Yes,
although if you're competitive you'll probably choose someone fast.
This is maybe a little bit boring answer, but I would like to do it with Lauren Weeks because I love her and I have raced her also in other races like outside Hyrox. I've raced her in OCR. I raced her in this fitness hybrid competition, like a competition called Battle Bunker that Hunter was hosting some time back. And we just always have like a really good battle when we race. And I think like the way we race and the mindset would be quite, you know,
you'd be cool. Strong together.
Yeah, I think that would be like really fun. And she's just, yeah, I think like we could complement each other quite well. But I mean, there is many that I like to race with though. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's a hard question.
I was thinking about like a fast track runner that I know, but then I was also like, I don't know if I would do that because he's a man. I was like, I'll probably just die on the run. So maybe it would be, I wouldn't.
You'll be hanging on, trying to go around.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is, do you fuel for Hyrox during the race?
Yes, I do. I do, both before, and I actually also started doing it during. So I do take caffeine. I drink my Red Bull, and I do add some electrolytes before the race. So usually I have like 100, 150 grams of caffeine. But during the race, I actually only take like carbs. So like I take a gel, but it doesn't have to have caffeine because I kind of loaded up on the caffeine before the race. So maybe often it's after either after the burpees or after the row, I take like 60 to 100 grams of carbs in some kind of gel, because I feel like that helps me quite a lot to get some carbs during, because you're just burning through those carbs really fast during a Hyrox race because it's so intense. So you want to load up on those carbs.
Yeah, totally. Next one, what's your favorite type of training session for Hyrox? Like format or a run session or?
Yeah, I do really like these sessions where I have like a mix of having, running and then some kind of like station, but then instead of only having running in between, having like the ergs instead. So maybe it's running, and then it's it's like running, some kind of stations, then it's like ski, some kind of station, then it's rowing, some kind of station. Sorry, my computer is like, so I do like that. I do like them to be like a little bit longer, some of these sessions, maybe like 40-50 minutes.
Yeah, nice grind session with some Hyrox movements.
It's kind of nice. And then I like to kind of add at the end of my sims these short sprints. I don't know why, but it just like makes me feel good. And I also try to work on the stations I like the least, a bit earlier. So I don't like always do wall balls at the end and then I can rest after, right? Then I put in the wall balls maybe a bit early, so they feel bad, but then I have to do something right after, right? So I kind of try to take the stations I don't need, but then have to work on something after it also.
Yeah, good answer. I like that. Okay, we have two more. Yeah. In a nutshell, why should someone sign up for their first Hyrox?
Because it's like, I feel what's really nice about Hyrox is like, you can complete, like you can do a full Hyrox race almost no matter what. It's just kind of it's just a question about how fast you will complete it, which I like. There's not any stations or any part of the running or any of the requirements that's like impossible to do if you're in general good fitness. Even like if you're not, like you will be able to complete it, which I really like. So like the entry level of skill is quite low, where if you do obstacle racing, there's like some quite specific obstacle skills. Or if you do CrossFit, there's some quite specific movements that you need to do, where I feel like everything is very accessible. And and I know the sleds maybe can be a little intimidating to look at, but everybody when they're there can do it, even if they haven't tried it before. So I think that's very cool. And the atmosphere, I really like the atmosphere at the venues, even though it's a little intense if you're there for a long time, it's just still like a good atmosphere. People are like cheering each other on, making small signs, about, there was this sign in Stuttgart, it was so funny, it was like Hyrox women are hot or something. Every time you ran by, you're like, okay, something like that. It was like, I love that.
Love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
really, these things that just makes you smile, right? And the atmosphere there is just very nice. It's just good venues and some good days when you're there. So so for having the experience to challenge, you can get through it. It's only a matter of how fast you do it, and you'll feel like you have accomplished something cool. It's a cool venue. You'll have fun. I mean, why not?
What's not to like?
And especially with the doubles. I mean, if you feel like you don't want to do it alone, to do it in a double is like a great way to get into it.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. And then last one, is there anyone or a type of person that you would like to see us speak to on our podcast, like to find out more about in the Hyrox world?
Yes, I think I would actually recommend one of my friends. She's from Denmark. What I really like about her is she's like a mom of 2, and she kind of found Hyrox a little like later in life, but she really has this super cool combi of like how to juggle a standard family life with a full-time job, while also trying to be semi-competitive within her age group. She does like cool training. She likes the community, and she's you know, she has a cool profile. She's like a fighter. I look up to her a lot myself. Her name is Stine Lincoln, yeah, from Denmark. And, you know, she just has, you know, a different perspective on OCR. She doesn't come from the elite world, but she still has like, you know, very high goals of her own within, you know, her age group, and just like how to balance family life and these stuff. So yeah, so she's and she's great to talk to. So maybe her.
Yeah, definitely. No,
another Dane on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
And then I saw you just talked to Johanna, the Australian. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend her because I was also super impressed with her. Like everything, she just came in, you know, a little bit, not like me from nowhere, but maybe even more from nowhere, you know, into the Hyrox world and everything. So it's just like, I love to see when there's just like new faces, and especially also because she's quite young, right?
No, super exciting. So
I'm gonna go listen to that one for sure.
I think you've probably got some quite good similarities, actually, the way you both think.
Maybe she's the one I should ask for doubles.
Yeah. That would be cool.
We're both sponsored by LSKD, so maybe I'll
there you go.
There's a connection there. So
there we go. Make it happen. That would be awesome.
LSKD team out on the track. Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We know you're super busy, and you've got loads of meetings and you've got loads of training to get done.
That's the life. Yeah.
So thank you for making time for us. It was really, really lovely to get to know you more and find out more about you on the podcast. We're excited to see how the season goes.
What are the next races you guys will be doing? When
we're hoping to, at the moment we're working on a contract down in London, and we're not sure when it finishes. So as soon as it finishes, we're hoping to sign up to a few races. We signed up to Madrid, but we're not quite sure whether our work's going to be finished by the time that happens. So we're keeping our fingers crossed we might be there. But if not, it'll be like the back end of this year, the beginning of next year, won't it? So we're going to be a bit more last minute.
Yes, love to meet you in person at some race.
Definitely, that will be awesome. And once we get this out, we'll share and tag, and anybody that wants to follow you, where can they head to follow you? Instagram is that best?
Yes, I would say mainly Instagram. I do have a TikTok, but I don't think you should look at that one. That's not ideal. Yeah, so I would say Instagram for sure is like my primary platform. That's often where I put up most of my stuff. So
perfect. We'll link it in the show notes, and we'll tag it when we share the episode. And thank you again. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see everyone on the next episode.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.